What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis. It's Wednesday, time for the Wednesday Linc Live. Back after a little break last week as I was on the road across the pond. We're ready to go right now, and it's been an interesting week for the Birds. You and I both talked about Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, hitting some home runs today in practice, both getting into the improvement that we've seen from Jalen Hurts. And I think we start there, Josh. First, we'll say good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? It's great to see you being back from across the pond there. Looked like a very exciting trip. I was a little jealous seeing your pictures of the French Open, but glad to have you back.
It was fun. It was a fun trip. It was busy, though, and we had no rain. I mean, literally, it was sun. I got sunburned the entire time. Yet in Ireland and Scotland, it's
I was going to say, it looked like you got a lot of sun. So.
It's supposed to be rainy the entire time, but it wasn't. So that's good. I want to bring up this idea of Jalen Hurts, because we both talked about this a little bit earlier as we start the show and people start kind of filing in right now. There are these reports saying that he's expecting to be better. Jeremy Fowler had a fascinating one of those little blurbs on SportsCenter or Get Up where it doesn't give you a lot of details, but he essentially says, here's what I've heard. And he basically heard that right now, Jalen Hurts has dramatically improved from where he was at last year. He's looking to be better than where he was at from last year. And I'm just wondering, how much better can the guy be? Because you hear that report, you go, okay, good. Then you go, what's he going to get better at? We all saw the stat on Twitter where he was the number one pocket passer in the league last year. He was one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. Lowest check down rate, meaning he's hitting people further from the line of scrimmage. Where's the improvement for this guy? I mean, yeah, you can get better every year, but how much better can you actually get?
That's a great question. I think that's what a lot of us are asking, because I had the same thought. Like, as soon as you see it, it's like, okay, cool. That's exciting because there's a potential there. But then, yeah, you go back through the stats and the numbers and the tape and everything, and you're like, where, to your point, where are we going to find it? Now, granted, you could always improve, and Jalen would be the first one to say that. He's like, the grind never stops. It's always continuing to climb. But yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, where, especially within like the comment that Fowler made was they expected to become an elite pocket passer type of quarterback. And of all things, or almost of all things, like the pocket passing, he led the league in. And so if you look at the accuracy, the numbers and everything there, I mean, there's not a whole lot else. And, we can probably, if you want to, we can get into Chris Sims' comments, because I know that you and I both have covered it. We've had people that, nonstop comments, and what does Chris know? And obviously he's a known Jalen Hurts hater, so he's going to just always say that. But I'm sorry, where do you want to nitpick? Like this whole thought of Jalen somehow had the Super Bowl just gifted to him in terms of the Chiefs just loading the box in every single down, saying, "Oh, we dare you to pass it on us. We dare you to hurt us, but by throwing the football." Is ridiculous. Like, sure, he had some looks, but it's also a lot of the throws. I mean, go back and look at all of those throws in the Super Bowl that he made. It's not like, oh yeah, any average quarterback should just sit back there and do that. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm shocked by those comments, because it is hard to read between the lines and figure out what they're talking about. I mean, maybe to the point of there's a little bit more progression, or I'm thinking possibly like pre-snap, but then you still go back to like, well, what does that mean in terms of a pocket passer, an elite pocket pass? Because that to me sounds like it's during live action. It's not pre-snap. Right. I don't know. I'm honestly at a loss. So I can't figure it out.
It doesn't make sense. Pre-snap would make sense, though. You'd expect your quarterback to get better pre-snap year in and year out. I mean, Peyton Manning got better every single year, and he's one of the best to ever do it. The Sims argument, I think you did the little video clip that I did today, was bizarre, where he said, well, Hurts played well, but different quarterback against that Chiefs defense would have thrown for 500 yards instead of 342. And you're just like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? Did we watch the same game?
Exactly.
Had so many drives, and each drive was basically a score minus the fumble, which people love to rip him for and say that that's the reason that we lost. Just ridiculous, because it's not defense. Darius Slade quote tweeted that today and said it was our fault. We gave up 35 points on defense. So it's fascinating. I'll be very curious to see what Hurts does this season. We don't talk about it a lot, but the pressure is monumental for him. I mean, think of what the pressure was for Carson Wentz after 2017, and he was coming after an injury. Jalen Hurts is not coming off an injury. The expectation for Carson Wentz was he will be, again, an MVP candidate. He's the next Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, great elite quarterback, and he couldn't live up to it. Now, Jalen has a way different overall team around him. You can argue if Wentz would have had it in 2018, it could have been a little bit different, despite the fact Wentz was playing well towards the end there until Foles had to come in. But I do wonder what the expectations are going to be like for him going into 2023. And if he is as good as last year, will people be upset because he's not better? If he's slightly worse and they only win 11 games but still win the division, will people be upset? That's going to be fascinating to me to see how it kind of molds as this offseason kind of kicks into full gear once we get to training camp. And really, once you get into the meat of that schedule, which we know is very difficult. Like, what are people going to do if Hurts, struggles a little bit in some of these games and isn't lights out 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks every single week? It's going to be a quick turn and it'll get ugly and it'll be frustrating, in my opinion.
It will. It'll be a little frustrating. And I think that we've talked about this a little bit before. It's like, it wouldn't shock me if we see a little bit of a dip, especially maybe perhaps early in the season, because you're giving teams an entire offseason to game plan, to watch film, to figure out what does Jalen do well, what does he not. Granted, I would argue that's a little difficult to try to figure out what he can't do. But I mean, even Chris Sims, when we go back to that, he even said, he's like, he never makes a wrong decision. So I don't understand the whole comment, but to get off of Chris Sims and stop talking about that, but still he even recognizes, and I think everyone recognizes, he is an incredible leader and he makes almost always the right decision. So to see him take the next step, yes, he's going to have to. And that's where I think it's that pre-snap, because I think the defenses are going to see where can we possibly get a very slight edge on Jalen. But if he recognizes it pre-snap, then it's, hey, and it's an audible out, it's a change the play, it's whatever you can do there. But I think maybe early on you see a little bit of a roadblock, but in terms of it facing adversity, I mean, we all know, like, this guy's different. Like there's no one like Jalen Hurts. And so the reason that he is so good is because he's different and he can fight through that adversity. So I won't be down on him. I won't be, I'll be a little upset, but I won't be like depressed or, saying, oh, this guy is falling, this season's over. If a game or two in, it's like, man, this is not the same Jalen that we've seen. It's maybe just some adjustments that are going to take place, but I'm excited to see what they do, because I don't think that this team is going to have too many issues. I mean, especially with the way the schedule starts out. Now, granted, you'd made the point of it is a very difficult schedule. Yeah. So you got to get some momentum early, but I still, I've got total faith in Jalen. I think everybody does.
I think that they do. I would totally agree. Welcome in some people here. Alfonso Gutierrez jumping in. Cool Rain says Hurts is a beast. Evan Whited, Tracy Ann, Alfonso again. Ohana means family. If you guys are just joining us, sure hit the like button, thumbs up. We get more people to find the show, join the shows, and hang out and have fun. And obviously, if you have questions, go and throw them in the chat. We'll answer them as they come in. I want to ask you about something you talked about on your show today, and that is the second linebacker spot. I remember you mentioned, as I watched your show today, Nakobe Dean locked it up. I mean, the guy's got the green dot on the helmet. It basically says he's the play caller of the defense, not just the starting linebacker. That other linebacker, though, you talked about, share it with the people if they didn't see your show today. It's interesting to see who this up-and-coming rising young linebacker is who could be starting in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it is interesting. And, you always have the storylines, the takeaways from OTAs, and you question, like, all right, is this just kind of bigger than actually what the news is, or is this something that's legit? And, from face value, at least what we've heard so far. So Christian Ellis is a second-year linebacker going into his second season. He's 24 years old, 6'3", 240 pounds. Ran a 4.58 40. So, he's pretty athletic.
Pretty good.
And he basically made the play of OTA so far. Like, it's kind of just spread around Twitter, and there's been some news, and John McMullen of SI.com had reported on it. And he said, yeah, they had a play that was going on where Mariota dropped back. And he was, oddly enough, I don't think Mariota had an incomplete pass until the interception. Like, he was perfect. And then all of a sudden he was going to throw to Tyree Jackson. And he was baited. Ellis was kind of like in between and baiting him and Mariota threw it up, and Ellis made an incredible play on the ball, intercepted it. And apparently lots of the coaches were also watching when that happened, as I would imagine takes place during a lot of 7-on-7s. Right. But, it's a very small sample size. Obviously you could say, well, it's 7-on-7, it's one play, it's OTAs. Yeah, there's all that. But I don't think it's out of the question to say that second linebacker spot is up for grabs. Yes, I do want to see what Morrow can do, and it wouldn't shock me if Nicholas Morrow is the starter. Right now he's getting first-team reps. That's where this thing seems to be headed. But, it's these types of plays. If Ellis continues to make waves, especially we get into training camp and he makes some more plays on that side of the ball. Nick Sirianni's spoken about how he does love Christian Ellis's energy and his effort on special teams. So, it's not like he's a player that's completely off the radar, but not many of us have seen him in action outside of some special teams plays. So it'd be interesting to see. But, from just the physical tools, you could say, yeah, the potential's there. Like, he's a bigger linebacker, and especially if he has some good coverage skills, then you let Nakobe Dean mop up the middle. You say, hey, we got our bigger linebacker. You go guard the tight ends. You go cover those guys. I mean, it's interesting to me. I could possibly see it.
We definitely got to wait till training camp, as you had just mentioned. But this linebacker core is full of complete unknowns. I mean, the expectation is Morrow and Nakobe Dean will be your two starters, and I still think Morrow has enough starter time and with the Bears and really good play last year to win this job. But you
Mhm.
mentioned it. I mean, if there's any slip up, there are three other linebackers who, two of which have been in the system for right now a pretty long time. We're what, year 2, year 3 of Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley. They're waiting in the wings and ready to go. It feels like all four of them are going to make the roster, and I don't know if you're going to keep more than 4 linebackers going into, and a training camp. It's going to be fascinating to see what Christian Ellis and the rest of them are going to be able to do. And truly, this will be really decided by the third preseason game, which was just announced, obviously, against the Colts. It's going to be on Amazon Primes. If you don't have Prime Video, you got to go ahead and pick that one up. But it
Mhm.
feels like they're going to give you a couple of different looks and a couple of different starters probably in these preseason games, where 1 week it'll be Dean and Morrow, then it could be Dean and Ellis, then it could be Morrow and Bradley. Who knows? But mix it up. And that'll be one of the big reasons why we'll be live streaming the preseason games, why we'll be very curious of the preseason games, because most of the other position groups where you actually have battles are backup spots, right? Who's running back 2? Who's going to be
Right.
wide receiver 3? You make the argument the right guard spot is obviously still up for grabs, maybe the safety spot as well. But truly, this is going to be an impactful position that we don't know who's going to play in that yet, and that is linebacker. So fascinating to see how that's going to go.
Yep, I'm interested too. Yeah, like you mentioned, there's lots of positional battles, but out of all of them, again, to your point, it's like the Bears. Morrow had a lot of play time there. He had a ton of tackles.
Yeah.
He did very well, but I don't think that anyone's just expecting he's going to walk in and immediately have the starting job. He is the favorite for it, but it wouldn't surprise me if you see someone that surprises somebody in Desai's system. I mean, as much as he preaches about players developing and kind of finding a new identity, I mean, Desai did that in his most recent one-on-one interview. I think the Eagle Eye podcast was the one that he was on. But you talk about, or you hear him talk about that, and he's going to look at everything. There's not going to be a stone left unturned. So I could see it. It's a possibility for sure.
Tracy Ann says Sims expects Hurts to play offense and defense. LOL. Yeah, that's a good one there. Alfonso says 10 years from now, Jalen will be compared to Brady, Peyton, Montana, and all the quarterbacks great as one of the most efficient overall players. Jalen knows how to win. That would be. I mean, it's a bold statement, but based on last year, you would think it's an accurate one, but we need a lot more of a sample size. I mean, come on. People are saying that about Dak Prescott during his first 12-win season, and yet Dak Prescott, has fallen to the wayside. Not to compare it to Jalen Hurts, but an example that 1 year does not guarantee you're going to be up there with Brady and Manning and the rest of them. Dartmouth says, who would you draft, McNabb or Hurts? Right now, you would take Hurts, but you can't disrespect Donovan McNabb because he won a ton. I mean, the guy won a ton of games, and the problem is recency bias on that one. We would all say Hurts, but it's not like it's night and day difference, because McNabb, especially young McNabb, when he could run, was really good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a difficult question, but yeah, to the recency bias, what we've seen from Hurts, that's definitely what you'd be leaning to there.
Ohana Means Family says, we're super focused on Sean Desai, and for good reason. We don't know what he will bring to the table. What are the expectations you guys have for Brian Johnson this year? I'll answer Johnson in a second. Desai is fascinating because we have no idea. Truly, we have no idea. The only little hints that we've gotten are his one press conference, which didn't tell us much, and then people like Nicholas Morrow and Terrell Edmonds saying that there's a lot to study. Like there's a lot of different plays. They're working on schemes and situational awareness, which I think is fascinating. What do you do in this 3rd down and 1? What do you do in this 2-minute drill from the goal line? Stuff like that. I just don't know what we're going to get. If it's going to be too intricate to where people don't know where they are, and it takes a couple years to figure it out. We've seen that in the past. Will it be vanilla, just like Jonathan Gannon? Is it Jonathan Gannon's just reskin defense? I have no clue. Desai is going to be a fascinating person to watch, because we're going to have no clue if it's good or not until week 1. Like the preseason will not tell us if it'll be so darn vanilla.
You're right. We're not going to know. And all of a sudden it's going to be like, all right, here we go. What are we going to get? We've talked about it before, though. I think both of us are very hyped up to see it. And he's saying all the right things. Desai, I mean, come on. If you listen to the interview, the press conference, it gets you hyped up to begin with. It's like, oh yeah, this is the guy that you want leading your defense. So I'm excited about that. But again, to your point, it's like, until we actually see it, it is just interesting, though. You talk about like the situational football, the defense, everything like that. I don't think you can stress enough. And I think Desai's mentioned a little bit as well, but like having smart players on the field with the IQ to understand every type of situation, or as many as possible, because how many times do you win or lose games based on players kind of having to just obviously make plays, but in specific scenarios where it's like, you know what? it was an audible. It was kind of just a scrambling play, a crazy thing that happens. And there you go. There's a first down or not a first down. So I think there's a lot of big elements to that. And Desai stressed the importance too. So the fact that you've got guys like Morrow and several others that are coming out and saying, this is the most that I've learned in terms of just situational football and awareness and being taught the different levels of the game and kind of thinking it strategically. I think it's a great sign starting out. But again, it comes back to how does that translate whenever we start the season? So that's what we're excited to see.
Same could go for Brian Johnson. The second half of Ohana Means Family's question. What do you expect from Brian Johnson this year? I think it'll be a little less dramatic in terms of the change. I think there's a pretty good mold that was set there from Shane Steichen, and you got to figure Nick Sirianni was, part of spearheading that. And so it's not like you're going to have a complete change in terms of offensive philosophy. But, Johnson just talked a little bit about more what he wants to do. I think they might run the football a little bit more. I think back to some drives where they would just throw the entire time, not even run the football once or twice, and you're kind of like, okay, do we need to do this? Even though you have the options. Yeah. I think it'll be a balanced attack that feeds everybody and plays to Jalen Hurts' strengths. It's simple to say, but it really, the offense had no issues last year. Like there was the Colts game is the one game I can think about where the offense was a little bit iffy, and then maybe the Commander game that we lost, but Colts was really that one game where they just couldn't move the football. Other than that, and goodness gracious, it was 400 yards plus every single game. They were scoring 28 plus a game. I mean, it was great. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Brian Johnson should be the guy to, continue to develop Hurts in whatever way that's supposed to be and make sure that everyone gets fed. I think that's his main job.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. It's interesting. And I might disagree with you a little bit, just on the fact that I kind of think that we're going to pass more than we did last year. I don't know. The thought would be, we ran the football, 65% of the time, something like that. So you got that. And then you've got the report of Fowler saying the Eagles think that Jalen's going to take this next level step, whatever that means. But if you really think that he's going to take that next step, I'm kind of leaning towards, okay, so we're probably going to pass more than we did last year, especially if defenses are going to come in and say, oh, the Eagles are going to run the football at least 65% of the time. So I'm leaning towards they're going to make a transition and maybe surprise teams where it's like, wait a second, they can run the football, but now when we're loading up on the box, they're just making us pay even more so. But I don't know. I would lean towards that. I think there's going to be some nuances, but still to your point, I agree that there's not going to be a huge drastic change. It may be a 5% change in terms of like how often you're running and passing. But I don't think it's going to be, all of a sudden we're a 65% passing team. That's not going to happen. This O-line is too good. These running backs are too good. There's a lot of other ways that we can beat you. So it's not going to be drastic, but I am interested to see because I think there's going to be small nuances that Brian Johnson kind of carves out in this offensive scheme that's going to surprise some teams. And truth be told, it'll probably be needed after a full offseason, like we talked about, of defenses game planning on how to stop Jalen.
Joseph just said, "Do you think Jalen Hurts will play in the preseason?" I think he will. I'm all for people playing in the preseason. All too often, you see the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the season, a lot of rust, not just from one individual player, but from offenses as a whole. And I know you get reps at 11 on 11s, but it's way different when you can actually be hit versus when you can't touch the quarterback and when you can't do a full tackle on a guy. I think he plays. I think, week one, you give him a drive. I think week two, you give him 2 or 3 drives or until he scores. And I think week 3, you sit him. And that's kind of what you do. That's what all teams have done, especially with the shortened, preseason schedule now where they don't play week 4. Now it's week 3. But that's how I would do it. You don't have to do anything crazy. But, Rodgers likes to play a little bit in the preseason. Most of these guys like to get out there and get a little bit of live action. That way, week 1 at the Patriots, you're not surprised by anything.
Yes. Yeah. We definitely don't want to, in my opinion, we don't want to walk into Foxborough and be like, oh, we haven't had any real live action until just now. So I agree. And I don't know. I wouldn't think that anyone, Jalen, the coaches, anyone would be saying, let's just wait until the regular season. Again, injuries can happen whenever. And I'm all for protect the players until the regular season. But if you're doing your job the way you're supposed to, you get him out there for a drive, maybe 2, like you said. It's not going to be crazy amounts of playing time, but just shake off the rust, get ready to go. Then you're prepared for week 1.
And injuries happen all the time, and it's super frustrating when you get injured in the preseason, but it's always a dumb argument. Like, if he didn't play in the preseason, then he's for sure wouldn't be injured in the regular season, which doesn't make sense because you could go vice versa. If he plays in the preseason, then he might get hurt in the regular season, or he might not. It just... If you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. There's nothing you can do about it. And it sucks. It's no fun. We knock on wood. We pray. We hope that it's not going to have an issue. But this whole idea of protecting people by not playing them at all is a little ridiculous. Sure, maybe you don't play Jason Kelsey in the preseason because he's a little older, a little more wear and tear. That's fine. But these guys are going to get a couple of snaps, and honestly, I have no issue with that. No Madden curse this year, says Ohana Means Family. No, although the Madden curse has kind of been broken. It's not real anymore. But yeah, I mean,
True.
Josh Allen deserves it. Let's be real. Josh Allen is one of the top 5 elite quarterbacks in the league. He's a household name, a name brand right now. He's been doing it for a little longer than Jalen Hurts. Have your time in the sun. I think the deluxe cover looks awesome with him jumping into the stands. Hurts will be the cover guy next year if he plays well. I mean, it's all but guaranteed. I mean, the guy is becoming a national brand in and of himself. So it's not like he got robbed of it and will never have a chance again. If Hurts does what he did this past season in 2023, he's the Madden 2025 cover, unless they go with Madden because it's 25. But he will be a cover athlete, and that's cool. It's fine. It doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't, I don't freak out about it either way. But
yeah,
congrats to Josh Allen. Josh Allen is great. He's a great quarterback. I think there are a lot of GMs that would take Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts right now. If you had to flip a coin today, maybe. Although you can make the argument that Hurts protects the ball better. But, I mean, listen, we're talking about 1A, 1B, or 1A.1 and 1A.2. They're both fantastic. Congrats to Josh Allen.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, I agree. I don't really believe in the whole Madden curse, but it seems to be split. There was a poll I think Eagles Nation had on Twitter, and there was, I don't know how many thousands of people that voted, but it was dead center. It was 50% on yes and no. Do you believe in the Madden curse? So, I mean, I know a lot of people, it's real. It seems to have been broken. There was a long time where it was like, maybe there's something to this. This is odd how many times it actually happens, but it's like the law of averages and the percentages there. I honestly couldn't have cared less. Like if he was on it, great, good for him. If he's not, okay, so what? Who cares? Like we know who Jalen is. We know what he's going to do. So yeah, to your point, good for Josh Allen. I did see someone making a joke of something like, hey, congrats to a guy who led the league in turnovers. They'll be able to help Madden with their quarterly turnovers in terms of like percentage sales and stuff. So sure, go with that, take a shot at Josh Allen. But no, I mean, it's not super surprising. And there's also all sorts of storylines that, Madden tries to do, the NFL tries to do here. So I think Buffalo's first player to be on the Madden cover. So, maybe they were looking at that as well. It's like, it's a good storyline. Josh Allen deserves it. We got to pick one of these quarterbacks here. And they went with Josh Allen.
Yeah, you got to remember, I mean, the last time talking about the Madden curse, the Eagles had a guy in the cover was McNabb. It was 2006. I had it on my Nintendo DS first gen, and McNabb tore his ACL against the Titans that year. So, I mean, Eagle fans understand it. And then, of course, guy Peyton Hillis got Madden cursed into oblivion. And the fact that guy even made the Madden, I mean, that guy just disappeared.
Yeah,
wild.
Well, and he could thank the fans for that one, right?
Sure.
I mean, they were asking for it when it was the fan vote, and then it's like, hey, let's just troll everyone, just get this guy Peyton Hill, which he had a good season, but come on, there were so many other good options there, and once he did, it was like, yeah, that you kind of had that one coming.
Cheesesteak says, welcome back from your trip, Thomas. Who won the French Open? It's still going on. They got the semifinals are Friday. But when I was there, I got to see Tiafoe and Zverev play, and Zverev's in the final and the semifinals, and he won today. So it's cool. It was a very cool experience. And what we only paid $140 for center court tickets that were really low. I mean, it was not expensive either. It was very cool. Ohana Means Family says the Cardinals seem to be cleaning house. The Cardinals release Ertz. Would you guys be interested in bringing him back on a cheap deal to strictly back up Goddard? I would, but very unlikely. Listen, the Cardinals are cleaning house. They can't clean the entire house. They're not going to get rid of everybody. And Ertz is going to probably finish out his career in Arizona. I wouldn't be shocked if he retires the next couple of seasons, that retires as an Eagle. It's just unlikely. I did see, though, speaking of Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins' first official visit is with the Tennessee Titans, which is so bizarre. What sense does
that make?
It doesn't make any sense unless they want to pay him the most money. But at this point, does D-Hop really need more money? Like, wouldn't you think he wants to chase a ring? Going to the Titans guarantees he's not getting a ring this year. I mean, let's just be real. It's not going to happen.
For sure. Yeah. No, definitely not going to happen. And I think you have an answer to your question there. I don't think he cares about winning. Like, why are you even visiting with the Titans?
I don't know.
If you want to win, you don't even go. There's no reports of, hey, he's meeting officially with the Titans here, because no, they're not a contender. Like, you only go to teams that are going to have a chance to win. So to me, I think it'll be the highest bidder. But even still, like, why? The Titans have also looked like, they're going to clean house. They're letting go of some players. Maybe are they going to retain Kevin Byard? There was, speculation there. Jeffrey Simmons. You got all these things going on, and they seem to be kind of in not really dumpster fire, but definitely like just so like very, very much middle of the road. Now their division is not, super great. You've got the Jaguars there that probably are going to go back and repeat, but even still, like if you add DeAndre Hopkins to the Titans, are you really sitting there going like, yep, that's it. That's the one step that'll get us over that. I can't see that. That's crazy to me. So I don't know. I was shocked whenever I thought for sure we're going to see, the Bills or the Chiefs or, we've got some of these other teams here that, and even the Patriots, like that one didn't completely make sense to me, but it's like, it's more so, it's closer to what I could see. But then out of the blues, like this one was totally off my radar. Why in the world are the Titans considering DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know. Maybe he goes there. If he does, good for him. I mean, he goes to a team in the AFC that's really not going to do anything, in my opinion. I don't think they will.
We always talk about, what are you hearing out of OTAs? Anthony Richardson apparently looks great. CJ Stroud looks fantastic. Bryce Young looks incredible. The one first-round quarterback, or sorry, not first-round quarterback, the other quarterback in that draft in Will Levis apparently has not looked that good with the Tennessee Titans. They don't like Malik Willis, so Tannehill, I just feels like that's kind of the overall feeling going into why would you want to do that. But we'll see. I'm sure just because you're meeting doesn't guarantee you're going to get him, but it is interesting. Let's throw up this real quick. I saw this a little bit earlier, and it's the Danielle Hunter trade possibility. There's a report saying that several teams have inquired about Danielle Hunter and that he potentially could be available for a trade. And, CBS Sports lists, let's just throw up the Panthers, the Ravens, the 49ers, and the Texans as possible options there for Danielle Hunter. But naturally, Eagle people will have headlines tomorrow saying Danielle Hunter could be also landing spot for the Eagles. And it's been a little, tiring watching some of those headlines the past couple of days. People put Chase Young, people put Hunter Renfrow, people put Yannick Ngakoue, people put Leonard Floyd until he signed with the Buffalo Bills. But there's no reports linking these guys to Philadelphia. There's nothing. All it is basically you saying, well, he could make sense in Philly, so why doesn't he go to Philly? That's it. So we're not going to pretend like he's linked to going to Philadelphia, but any of these pass rush guys, tickle your fancy? Does it do anything for you? Would you be even interested in a guy like Danielle Hunter?
I mean, maybe, sure. All these types of scenarios, and I'm with you. It kind of gets old of hearing so many speculations, rumors. At the same time, it's like a very somewhat or very much a lull period. So it's like, what are we going to talk about? Oh, hey, here's this potential. Should we consider them? But I don't know. Like at the right cost, right money, I could see where it definitely makes sense to add another D lineman and just stack it up, which it wouldn't surprise me if how he does that for another move. But it still comes back to you, like, I mean, how much are you willing to pay? Like, what do you want to do here? Because we've got a pretty solidified team, pretty solidified defensive line. So, I don't know. I mean, out of all the ones, if I had to pick and choose, I don't know, out of a little bit more realistic players, because I know there's some like absolute studs out there that have been linked and then non, and then going back and forth. But most recently, out of the ones, I mean, I would love to, and this is never going to happen, but I would love to take a flyer on Chase Young if that was even remotely possible. But for a number of reasons, the Redskins, I did a short on that. So the Commanders, they're going to be definitely not shopping around Chase Young to a division rival. So it's like, that just crossed off the list. Like, don't even think about it. But if there was a world where you could consider him, I think he's got more potential left. I think that rehabbing injury, those type of injuries with the knees, with the lower body takes a lot longer. So if you take that, I mean, I could see it, but otherwise, I don't know. All these others are kind of like, to me, they're about equal. It's like, yeah, maybe they have a little bit. You're not going to ask them to play a whole lot of snaps. So I think you could see some production from those type of players, but there's no one that just immediately jumps off the page. And I'm saying, yep, absolutely. Let's go sign him today. I don't know. I don't see those.
If I was going to pick, I'd pick Renfrow. I think he'd be great in this offense, but the Raiders aren't trading Hunter Renfrow. I mean, goodness gracious. Everyone always talks about these teams that aren't going to win a Super Bowl just purging their entire rosters, but it's just not how the NFL works. It's very rare you get a full-on fire sale. Teams will trade away one person. They're not going to trade away 4 people or 2 people or 3 people. Right. And so it's just funny. It's funny to watch, but it's not going to happen. But if I had to pick, I think I love Renfro's game. I think he's one of the best slot receivers in the league and does it very similar to Wes Welker and Danny Amendola and some of the other Patriot guys out there. Shocked the Patriots haven't traded for him if he actually was available. But they just don't need a pass rusher. I mean, come on. There's only so many snaps for these guys. Only so many starting positions. Brandon Graham had double-digit sacks last year. Josh Sweat had double-digit sacks last year. Hassan Reddick. I mean, goodness gracious, you got to get Nolan Smith reps, even as a rookie. Even if he struggles a little bit, you still got to get him reps in there the way he's ready to go year 2. It just seems a little bit too far fetched. Philly only traded for Robert Quinn last year because Robert Quinn was given away by the Bears for nothing, right? If you give me Danielle Hunter for a 6th round draft pick and he doesn't have to re-sign a new contract, sure. But it's not going to happen because other teams would pay more because they're in more desperate need of a pass rusher. So
yeah, I agree. And to your point, it's like that name Chase Young is the one out of all pass rushers if we're going to target. If we're talking about just any position there, I mean, I think linebacker, quite honestly. Like again, not to slight Nicholas Morrow too much or the other linebackers
Christian
like we've already talked about, Christian Ellis, like not to slight, but I just feel like that's another area, man. If you could get a guy like a Patrick Queen or an Isaiah Simmons or some of these other names that we've seen out there, it's just that other rock solid piece. I know Budda Baker, you could make the argument of the safety, but the competition that we have with Terrell Edmonds, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, it's not going to surprise me one bit. I mean, I'll just go off on a limb maybe, and maybe this is not so much of a limb, but I think that Sidney Brown will start week 1. I'm just, the way this is trending and what people are saying, and that he's getting comparisons to a Budda Baker 2.0, and like he's making all these waves in OTAs. He's got a lot of time before week 1. So it wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden we're like, oh, Sidney Brown's starting on week 1. And if that's the case, then obviously, the Eagles are not going to make a move for another safety. So to me, it's that linebacker spot. I keep coming back to, you have some depth there, you have some possibilities, but if you're going to trade for a position, I think I would lean towards linebacker.
Jess Fever says Isaiah Simmons would go crazy. He would. I just don't know if Arizona's going to make another trade. I mean, they've made so many trades. It feels like they lose DeAndre Hopkins. Like if you are
highly unlikely,
Cardinals, you got to save face a little bit. You got to sell tickets. I mean, you can't just get rid of Kyler's not playing for the first half of the season. The guy doesn't work, right? So you're going to sell me a $400 ticket to watch Colt McCoy throw the football to Andy Isabella.
Come on.
I'm trying to think of a Cardinal, right? Is that a Cardinal receiver? What's their receiving core look like? I think it's Andy.
Any others?
Andy is. They don't have Christian Kirk anymore.
Right. I know. I'm kind of at a loss. I didn't have to look up and see. I don't know the depth chart well enough of the receivers they're throwing to.
Okay.
I mean, you got Ertz, you just throw it at a tight end, but
goodness gracious, I got to put the right one. There it is. They have Marquise. Oh, they have Hollywood Brown. That's right. Rondale Moore.
That's right.
Oh, they have Rondale Moore. Zach Pascal. How could we forget? I don't even see Andy Isabella on here. Auden Tate, ex-Eagle, on that roster as well. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess they have Hollywood Brown, which is not that bad. It's not a bad core. It's just Kyler, man. It's tough. He's tough to watch.
It's okay.
Tough to watch.
It's okay. It's not a terrible core. It's okay. But then you've got Gain in there who, I mean, what's the over under here on like wins? And I guess even to that point,
6.
Like, do we think he's going to make it a full season? He's already hamstrung with the team.
Yeah.
But he didn't start out on the right foot. Let's just say that his press conferences, the ways that he's making not great news, and the whole he's not started out on the right foot. So I hope that he's still here by the time they have to come to Philly, because I'm very much looking forward to that revenge game. But it also wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden it's like, oh, he didn't actually make it. So we've got an interim head coach.
The Cardinals' problem is that if they try to tank to draft a new quarterback, one, you got to get rid of Kyler, which is tough because they signed into an extension. And two, do you want, what's his name? What's the U.S. Caleb Williams to be underneath a defensive head coach? I mean, that's the serious question here. So to your point of would he survive the year, if they had the #1 overall draft pick, I would get rid of Jonathan Gannon and you'd hire somebody to be the next, quarterback whisperer. You would go find the best offensive coordinator this season. You would hire him, kind of like what the Colts do with Shane Steichen, and give him a blank check and a blank quarterback for a blank slate to try to figure out Caleb Williams. But it feels so early to get rid of Kyler, despite the fact you and I both don't like Kyler Murray. But I don't know. Thankfully, we don't have that problem because we're not talking about the Cardinals today. We have a much better and more powerful bird. Let's see. Most underappreciated Eagles legend of all time. Man. Asante Samuel. Is that fair? He was great.
Good.
It was just so short, right? The 2010 season when he was on the Vic team, that guy was insane. I mean, he was as lockdown of a corner as Philly's ever had, and as ball hawking of a corner as Philly's ever had. Other than him, because I think underrated, right? Underrated.
Right, yeah. Trying to think of that.
Well,
And I guess it's clarifying too. Like it's hard. That's a really good question, but a tough question because I'm thinking like in my head, I'm going underappreciated. So, not quite the credit they should have, but it's Eagles legend. So like they got to be like, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think through what do I see as an Eagles legend that's
Jeremiah says Jason Avant. Not a legend, but
Avant
was good. Selleck.
That's a pretty good one.
I don't think Brian Westbrook gets the flowers that he should. He does from Eagle fans. He doesn't from everybody else. So if you're saying we all know what Brian Westbrook was, the National Football League does not talk about Brian Westbrook in the same era as some of the other legendary backs of his time. He was good. We'll think about that. That's good. I mean, it's a fun question. I just try to think of some older guys. I mean, listen, Hugh Douglas was really, really good. And kind of got, the booted a little early, in my opinion. The old TO stuff. I know Hugh, friends with Hugh, so I'm a little biased there. But go back, watch the Hugh Douglas highlights. The guy was great. I think Jeremy Maclin was gone too soon. Maclin was incredible. I think he was really, really good. I mean, Deshaun Jackson was so, flavorful that year and so exciting that we all focused on him. But he was really good. David Akers, I think we all respect David Akers. I don't think he's underrated. Akers was great.
Alshon Jeffrey. Smith. I mean, I saw Alshon Jeffrey. Yeah, I mean, there's kind of in that run there. It's kind of short spurts, I suppose. But yeah, those are names you don't get there without them. I mean, they made plays.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. Alfonso says, not looking forward to life without Lane. Still not an immediate concern, but when will Howie get a successor? I talked about this in my show today. Lane says he's going to try to play out his contract. It feels like he's going to, 2026 is when the contract ends. That feels a little bit too long. You get 3 years of Lane, let's say this year, and then 2 more years after that. You don't have to get Lane's replacement till the final year, truly. I mean, you don't need someone to sit there for 2 years. The whole Jurgen situation is a bad situation. Now, the Eagles are a good team and a good organization and are fine to where we don't have to worry about it. But if you were a bad football team that needed players to play, the fact that Jurgens might sit 2 straight years for being a second-round draft pick is a bad look. It's not a good look. It's a very, very, very bad look. You don't want that to happen with the second-round draft pick. So you don't touch your right tackle until the draft before Lane Johnson's final year. That way he gets 1 year to sit behind Lane, and then he comes in and starts. You don't draft him earlier.
I agree. Yeah. You're to your point, the draft equity and the kind of I guess, investment that you're making in those players, you need them to play, like especially that type of an early round pick, which we would assume if you're picking a replacement for Lane, you're not taking a late round. I mean, I guess I could say that, and then you could say Jordan Mailata, but most likely you're going to say, all right, we need to get someone that's very much solidifying this position. So yeah, to your point, you're not going to draft him really early and have him sit for forever. So yeah, probably be the draft before you let him play behind and, take over whenever they're ready or once Lane retires after that season. But I think it's a win, honestly. Like whenever I heard that and, it's like, okay, cool. Like I expected the extension, like that's good news, but it's not anything crazy. I don't think any of us are surprised to hear that he's probably done after this extension because I didn't know that there'd be an extension, to be honest. Like, especially the reports and the mental, things that he had been going through. And I know there's a podcast, Uncovering the Birds. I think Jeff McClain had been doing that and listened to some of those. Really, really good, insightful detail on everything that Lane battled with. So even to hear that of the extension, I was like, that's phenomenal. I'm super pumped about that. But yeah, not surprising he's going to be gone after, or I guess retire after the end of the contract.
Drew Parker says the Aaron Philly day is so noxious. I feel bad if the athletes are working outside today and yesterday, but there was no report whether Philly did practice today. I highly doubt that they did. If you haven't seen, the Canadian wildfires that are blowing down towards New York City and the Northeast, New York City is wild right now. Have you seen the pictures of what's going on?
That looks bad. Yeah, Philly did too. I mean, the sky cam and stuff. Someone showed like a 1 p.m. clip and then like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. I was like, good gosh, you can't even see.
Josh and I both have lived in New York City, and I can't imagine being stuck inside what basically is a giant smelling campfire the entire time. It would be fun. Josh and I,
Nope.
We had our time in New York, and we're both very happy to not live in New York City anymore. Let's just say that. Love the city, but I did not like living there. It's a little rough. You might have had more fun than I did.
If you can't get out, if you're like stuck, it feels very cramped. Like that was the one thing. It's like, man, I'm getting cabin fever. I need to get out. I need to go do something, see something. But if you've got all that going on, that would not be fun. So for anybody who is dealing with that, my thoughts, prayers are out to you because that is not a fun situation to be in.
quick thing to mention here, we're still doing our ticket giveaway. If you're just joining us, this is the your best chance to get cheap Eagles tickets, right? Any super chat you do, $1 is one donation of 50, 60, 70, whatever you want to do, get you a chance to win 2 Eagles tickets. So drop a super chat between now and sometime during the preseason, and then we're going to let you pick which game you want to go to. We'll buy you 2 tickets to it. So any super chat, we've had a bunch of those so far. We're going to have a bunch more as we continue with this going forward.
And maybe we'll go with you.
Well, we might go with you. So that'll be very interesting. Sproles is a good one. He was very underappreciated. Darren Sproles during the 2016 season. The season before the Super Bowl was Sproles' kind of last hurrah, and he's with rookie Carson Wentz. Very fun to watch. You go back to like the Pittsburgh Steelers game of Wentz's rookie year. I mean, Sproles, he was really. I love Darren Sproles. And they tried to recreate him with Donald Pumphrey, didn't work. They're trying to recreate him with Gainwell, but Gainwell's a little bigger. It's working kind of. They've always tried to recreate Darren Sproles, but there really only was one real Darren Sproles. Yeah,
completely. He was so much fun to watch. I mean, guys like that. And I've seen, and people are saying like the Cowboys are trying to recreate that with the Deuce Vaughn that they drafted. He's a smaller, shiftier guy. I don't know. Good luck to them. Hopefully that doesn't happen. He was impressive. I did watch him 2 games at Kansas State, so he was impressive whenever I saw it. But still, like, I don't know. There's really no one like Sproles. Just the things that he could do or how he got out of those spaces was just ridiculous. So seeing him in his prime like that was phenomenal.
I did a short that's going to go live a little later today on LaShawn McCoy, and you watch that guy's highlights. Holy cow. That he might be up there with underappreciated, because I think the way that he got traded out was really nasty. For Kiko Alonso, which was the stupidest thing in my entire life. But Prime Shady was nuts. It was nuts to watch. Very fun to watch. Alfonso says, which NFC team will give us the biggest challenge for the NFC crown? This is a good question, and one that a lot of people can debate overall. I'm going to go out on a limb and basically say that it's not the 49ers. I think the 49ers are too much of a dumpster fire at the quarterback position for me to sit back and say it's going to be San Francisco. So let's just take San Francisco off the board there. I think Seattle gives them a run for the money in the division. Maybe the Rams are better than we think. Who knows? But there are a couple other teams here that you got to pick from on who's going to be that real threat to Philadelphia. And in my opinion, it comes from within. It's one of the divisional teams. It's either the Giants or the Dallas Cowboys, because San Francisco might have a good roster, but if they continue to go through quarterback hell like they have the past couple of seasons, they're just not going to be good enough or scary enough when it's all said and done. You saw what happened in the NFC title game, right? Even with a healthy quarterback, Philly still wins that game. The defense wasn't as good as you'd think, right? They have good pass rushers, but I think the Eagle offensive line neutralizes it very well, right? I mean, Nick Bosa played the entire game. Did he get to Jalen Hurts? Did he touch Jalen Hurts? I mean, basically not at all, because Lane Johnson has a lot of pressure the past 2 seasons. So cross off San Francisco. We all don't think Kirk Cousins is going to do anything. Might be his last year in Minnesota. Who's left? It's Dallas. It's the Giants. And then if you want to say Detroit, fine, but they got to prove to me they know how to win. Anyone else below Detroit has no shot. I mean, let's just be honest here. There's no shot. The Commanders are splitting reps right now. Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell 50-50. And they like what Brissett has done, was the report today. That's terrible news if you're Sam Howell. Baker Mayfield's not winning anything with the Bucs. Jordan Love, I'm sorry, he's not going to recreate Aaron Rodgers. Bryce Young's a rookie. The Saints, maybe, if Michael Thomas is finally healthy. The Falcons are going to be fun and flashy, but they don't have a good defense. The Rams have a couple of good players, but are they a Super Bowl team? No. Don't even get me started about Arizona. And Chicago's probably, a year away. They're probably a year away from being legit. So where's the team, Josh? Is it San Francisco? I think it's Dallas or the New York Giants.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me it's either Dallas or San Francisco. I can't really go as far as the Giants. Maybe they surprise us. Maybe they do something. I don't trust in Daniel Jones enough, and maybe he makes a jump. He needs to make a jump for his team. He needs to figure out how to throw to a receiver, or maybe they just need to have play calls for better receivers or throwing to the receiver. But I'm not ready to say that they're really the challenge or the difficulty there. I think it's the Cowboys, or I think it's the 49ers. And I see your point definitely with the whole quarterback situation. Yeah. But at the same time, I kind of lean towards the fact that, all right, the 49ers were able to do some pretty impressive things with Brock Purdy. Now, granted, is he going to be able to start? Is he going to be ready? Who knows? Is he going to be healthy? Probably not. They're going to go through multiple quarterbacks, but the NFL made life easier on the 49ers. Let's not forget that. They let them have 3 quarterbacks now, so maybe they're not in bad of a situation. But to me, I still... I don't know, until the Cowboys, until Dak can prove that he can get out of a divisional round and actually play better for multiple games in a playoff, in a playoffs, I feel like I'd probably still give the edge to the Niners. If there's any challenge, I still would probably go Niners first and then Cowboys second. But outside of those two, like, I don't know if there's anybody kind of like you're going through the list that I say is an absolute challenge there, like one of those top contenders. Granted, I'll say all that to say, it wouldn't be super shocking. It would be, a little bit upsetting if we were to lose to, let's say, the Seahawks or to the Rams, but we play them on the road. So,
Sure.
Those are difficult environments to go in. So it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like we lost to those teams. I think they'll be solid. But, to your point, what you're going over there, if you're going to talk about the upper echelon competitors to win the NFC, I think it's only like 2 teams.
A lot of people are talking about the Detroit Lions kind of being that other football team. And I love the Lions. I think they were great on Hard Knocks. I think they have some real talent. Here's my problem with the Detroit Lions, right? They are great here on the offense. They're really good. Goff, Gibbs, Jameson Williams when he's healthy. Amon-Ra St. Brown is fantastic. Marvin Jones, like they legit have a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. They have a 2-headed monster at running back. They have a very good offensive line, including Penei Sewell and Halapoulivaati Vaitai, former Eagle. My problem is everybody from here down. Sorry, I can't highlight it right. And everyone not named defensive line on the Detroit Lions. The defense's line is good. After that, it's not that good. If they liked Malcolm Rodriguez, they wouldn't have drafted Jack Campbell. And Jack Campbell's going to be a rookie. He's not going to be that good his rookie year. Cam Sutton's a journeyman cornerback who, let's just be real, hasn't been that great, or else Pittsburgh would have kept him. And then Tracy Walker and Emmanuel Mosley are fine at safety, but there isn't a real stopper here. To me, Detroit went into this draft and they said, we're going to give up a lot of points. We're going to give up a ton of points. But we might be able to score a ton of points and win some of these shootouts. And so Detroit, to me, doesn't scare me as much as I would argue Seattle. I think Seattle's offense is toe-to-toe just as good. You talk about, a quarterback who has had his ups and downs, but we think is, good enough to win you some games. A 2-headed monster at running back with the UCLA guy coming in here. They have Metcalf, they have Lockett. Jackson Smith and Njigba is a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. It's scary good what they're doing there. Fant is a good tight end. I think they're getting better at offensive line, including Charles Cross. Defensively, I think they're a little bit better on the backside, which makes them a little bit more scary. And they bring back Bobby Wagner. Quadri Diggs has been fantastic. Tariq Woolen. I mean, Devin Witherspoon is one of the cornerbacks. I think Seattle would scare me more than the Lions right now because they might be able to get a stop. And if you are unlucky enough to have to go play them in Seattle, it's a little more scary than going to Ford Field.
That's definitely. There's the home field advantage, I think, is a little bit different if you're going to play in Seattle. So yeah, to your point, I mean, Seattle had a great draft, I think, especially with those first couple selections. I mean, really the danger of having Smith and Njigba and having Devin Witherspoon, the adding to the team like that. It was funny whenever you pulled that up there. I guess maybe I don't know how it'll shake out, but CJ Gardner-Johnson is listed as, I assume, the slot corner in there. He's the backup. I don't know if
that's a good point.
That's where they're going to play him or safety on here. But still, he's probably going to start. But, I don't know, for what that's worth. But even so, you still look at the defense, and there's some holes with the Lions. I think that the part where they're a little bit fortunate is you look at their division, and, I mean, they should be the ones to kind of take hold of. Like, you're not expecting maybe Justin Fields takes a jump. He plays a little better. They have some pieces. But I don't think that you're saying, oh, yeah, you can cross off the Packers, like you already said. Cross them off. The Bears probably not ready to make that jump quite yet. The Vikings there, I mean, Kirk Cousins, they had a pretty good season last year, but I always thought they were overinflated. Like the entire year, you look at a team's like point differential, and that'll tell you a lot. Like at the end of the season, look at the records, but look at the point differential. And it was like, to me, they were always overinflated. It wasn't surprising to see the Giants beat them. So I think you look at that and say, if there's a team to win that NFC North, it is definitely the Lions. That would be my favorite. That would be my pick to win the NFC North. So, if the path, and like we've seen many times, not to say that, the greatness of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but their division was terrible. Like their
Very
division
true.
was a non-competitive division, and it's a little easier to win the Super Bowl, or at least to make it to the Super Bowl, whenever you don't have to worry about making the playoffs pretty much, because you say, oh, hey, we're going to go 7-1 every single year. We got to pick up a couple victories elsewhere, make the playoffs, and then all bets are off. Something can happen. So I don't know. I could see Lions. I could see Seahawks. They're close, but to me, still, they're not at that tier, that echelon of competitiveness for the 49ers and the Cowboys.
You mentioned point differential, great example, right? Philly plus 133, San Francisco 173, Minnesota -3. It was the Eagle game and the Cowboy game where you just kind of sat back and went, this is not a championship level team.
Yeah.
If you shut down Justin Jefferson, which teams are able to do, they are useless. Like they are hopeless, and their defense is not good enough to get stops, right? And then everyone else, we talk about Detroit and Seattle, they were still positive. Everybody else who stinks, like we thought the Giants did, negative point differential. So you're right, very much so about the point differential being a big factor in that, big time.
That's so bad. 13-4, and you're 13 wins, only 4 losses, and you're negative in the point. That's crazy.
Wild. Yeah, we really, really is wild overall. Jeff Fever says Devin Bush on Seattle, kind of crazy. Could be. A. Mills says, think Hendon Hooker will play next year, especially if they don't win their division. I think Goff is going to play really well. I mean, Jared Goff looked great last year. I think a couple of throws here and there, defense getting some stops. I think Goff's going to be just fine. But again, the problem with Jared Goff is, can you win a Super Bowl with him? Right? Because you could have won it with him that one year when you had such an amazing defense.
You should have.
Sure, right? You had
score anything and you're going to win.
But the same goes for Jimmy Garoppolo. You had a chance because you had a really good defense, you had a really good offensive scheme, and you kind of got drugged to your Super Bowl. But now, no one thinks Garoppolo is capable of winning a Super Bowl, and no one thinks that Jared Goff is capable of winning a Super Bowl. So the Lions will get to a certain plateau with Jared Goff, a certain level that they cannot cross, whether that's win the division, then lose in the first round or lose in the second round, then they will go to Hendon Hooker. That's how it will happen. It won't happen this year, but once they reach their potential and get to 11 wins and then get bounced quickly, then they make the move. And it's the Dak Prescott problem, right? Everyone knows you can win games with Dak Prescott. No one thinks Dak Prescott's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback unless you like to say we them boys, 24/7 and are a secret Cowboy fan, right? No one thinks deep down in their heart that he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. He's had a couple of good seasons. He's had a couple of good football teams, but he hasn't been able to prove it. So, in my opinion, now would be the time to get rid of Dak because he's obviously shown he's not there, but they're stuck at, Jerry Jones' own world. So different story for a different day. But what are you going to do?
Thankfully, they're staying with him. So that's
thankfully
that's a benefit for us. I wanted to get into this. And I see Martin Perez, who says, do you guys think Steen will start rather than Juergens at right guard because of Steen's size? Now, I know that it's been a storyline kind of ongoing, and certainly with OTAs, Cam Juergens is getting the first team reps. And he went and at the presser, he was basically saying like, I'm going to try to bulk up a little bit. I'm trying to get to maybe 310, 315, play at that weight. But he seemed to be pretty confident that he could and would play at right guard, which great. Don't discredit that. I want my player to be confident. I want you to compete. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of go back and forth on it and, did a show on it. And it's like I could see it both ways, really, because you've got Stout, they're very high on Steen. He played left tackle at Alabama, which means he's got to be good at that. Granted, it's to move to guard, but still just pass block and run block. He's a good natural blocker. So you take the tools, the athleticism that he has, and Stout sees some potential there, and he's naturally a bigger body, which, according to Brian Baldinger, that's what Lane Johnson wants to play next to. I don't know to what extent that actually is true and how much it means of, do I really want to play with Cam Juergens or not? So you could read into all those lines. But at this point in time, like, do you see that as an issue, I guess? And would you see Steen, I guess, competing? Or I guess, do you have Juergens still in front? Is the size thing that big of an issue to you?
Yeah, the size for me is not that big. I mean, Martin Perez just commented 6'6", 315 versus 6'3", 302. So it's more of a strength situation than a size one. I get that Lane wants someone maybe a little taller for passing off some of those longer, lengthier defensive ends. But to me, as long as Juergens' strength for strength, pound for pound is as strong, I don't have a problem with it. And I think the issue that Tyler Steen is going to have is being a rookie and trying to figure this out and knowing that you're the weakest link and therefore knowing that Aaron Donald is going to go one-on-one against you. They're going to try to get as many one-on-one opportunities against the opposing team's best pass rusher possible because going against Lane Johnson is useless. And you make the argument going against Mailata is useless. So they are going to go after you. And the same goes for Landon Dickerson. So this is something that I got to wait and start, seeing what happens during training camp. I really need to know who looks good and who looks bad, and then get into preseason. I think both these guys are going to play a lot in preseason. And Juergens, this would be the interesting part. Juergens is competing for the right guard position, but he will have to slide over to center once Kelsey comes out of preseason games, or if Kelsey doesn't even play, right?
Right. Yeah.
They don't have another center on that roster unless you want to move somebody over there who's not naturally a center. So this could be a very interesting situation where it might be neck and neck, but Juergens in practice can be right guard. But when he gets to a game, he needs to go ahead and basically be a center again. And so that's a different scenario and a different thing we got to wait to find out about. But I think it will be Juergens. I will just, bury my hatchet in it being Juergens for now. But I get all the arguments for Tyler Steen. Not like I'm an idiot. Brian Baldinger mentioned the Johnson thing. Brian Baldinger lifts and works out with Lane Johnson a bunch too. So, your bench press, you say, hey, Lane, who do you want to play with? He says, I'd rather play with Steen. And then there you go. You have a story.
True.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
And I guess he didn't care for him to report it. That was kind of the unique part too. It's like,
it was, yeah.
Really? You're going to put that out there? Like, it's not, I don't think there's crazy drama, not making it bigger than it actually is, but still it's a slight, like if Cam Juergens sees that, I'd be like, okay, I mean, that seems like that's me because like I'm the right guard right now. So I don't know. That's just an unusual comment to be made.
What do you think about the move for Lionel Messi to enter Miami? Briefly, Josh has seen Lionel Messi play in person, and I've been to the FC Barcelona stadiums. We're both connected to Messi. I'm shocked Barcelona couldn't figure out the money. Honestly surprised they couldn't figure out the money because it felt like the homecoming would have made a lot of sense. But he's gonna make $100 million a year, and the endorsements in America for Miami is gonna be insane. Good for him. Sure. I mean, come on, everyone's done this, right? Zlatan did it.
Right.
What's his face? Beckham did it. This seems to be what you do, right? You go to the other tour. The more interesting story of the week was Liv merging with the PG, which is just nuts. But we're not a golf channel, so what are you going to do?
That was, you get into all that, but oh my gosh, you talk about just craziness going down. That was insane. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen a guy to really quickly wrap that part up with the soccer segment, but I've never seen a guy as ridiculous with a soccer ball at his feet and what he can do. And it's like the ball's on a string. He can do whatever he wants to, and defenders cannot take it away. It was crazy. I saw Argentina play Mexico at AT&T Stadium. Absolute nuts. Ridiculous.
Wild stuff here. We got an entry in on the the ticket giveaway. Joseph threw up $5, 5 entries. I'm going to the Browns at Eagles game. I just hope Jalen plays a couple of snaps. It's one of the preseason games. I think it's the week 2 preseason game. He'll play a couple of snaps. And the good thing is you probably got some cheap tickets and you get to watch some of the battles up close and have fun with it. Preseasons are fun. I haven't been to a preseason game, but I totally go to one. I don't have anything against them. So, but the good news is you have 5 entries. And
got you down.
Regular season tickets where Jalen will for sure play. So smart move there by you, Joseph. Have fun at the Browns game. There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've only been to one preseason game, and
Which one?
It was actually it was not really by choice, but it was a Cowboys and Vikings game. So
fascinating.
Yeah. And it's preseason games are. It's a lack of interest unless you have someone like a dog in the fight, and especially with like I didn't care at all, obviously, with those teams. But yeah, it gets boring super quick whenever you're on a preseason game. It's like, wow, the competitiveness is not quite the same, and you don't care about the teams there. So, but I would love to go to a Philly preseason game. Like, if I lived closer, or the games were going to be closer, I think it'd be awesome because there's so many storylines with it. Where some years, you're like, okay, here's the solidified team; these are going to be the starters. But I think that'll be awesome.
Alfonso says, I hope our defense will be vicious this year. Straight nasty. Type of defense that opponents don't want to play. Championship caliber defense. That's the hope. I think defenses didn't want to play Philadelphia this year because of the front line, but it'd be nice if the entire defense had that kind of vicious tenacity to them where it takes that next step. I think the defensive roster is better this year than it was last year. The only part that, you can make an argument was better last year is the fact that you had defensive tackle who's now with the 49ers, who I'm blanking on.
Hargrave.
Right now. Hargrave, sure. But you can't tell me that year 2 Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter can at least make up for some of the overall pressure that Hargrave was giving. Maybe TJ Edwards, but I think that they're going to be fine. I think it's a better overall team. I really do. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I think the defense is better on paper.
I think they will be too. I think when we look at the end of the season here, I think that, stats, there's like a fine line with them. Sure. Stats are important, but at some point it's kind of like, Yeah, that's and this is why I love the whole situational defense part. Like we were talking
Right.
about it at the open and going over the show here, but I think that's the most important part, right? Like when you have a lead, what do you do? Like in these certain situations, I don't care. Don't all these other stats are meaningless. If this is winning football and it's winning time, you got to take care of business. And so too many times the adjustments were not made, obviously, with Jonathan Gannon at the helm. And so I'm interested to see, like, are the players put in the position to make plays, and are we making adjustments? So I think so. With the group that we have, the potential of the guys that are coming, and the players that have the chips on their shoulder, I think that guys are going to make the next jump. You got the Nakobe Deans, the Jordan Davises, you had the rookie groups, and I can't wait to see what this team does behind Desai.
What is your biggest worry? Like if you had to put a worry on the 2023 Eagles, what's your biggest concern?
Injuries.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and that maybe is kind of like a cop out, but really, like the Eagles were, I think, first or second in terms of just
Health.
health and not getting injured, and those things. I mean, it's a little bit on the training staff, but it's kind of cyclical. Like you just get lucky, you get fortunate. I mean, all the time we see a play where the slow-mo, a running back runs in the back of an offensive lineman, and oh man, there's an injury there, and you just can't help it. That's what happens in the game. So I don't have a whole lot of fear or concern. I know we talked about there's maybe you get a second linebacker to solidify, but it's not major concern. It's not like, oh, I'm super terrified. To me, it's injuries. Like, what happens, obviously, like a huge injury, like Jalen goes down or something, but even just to, a pretty impactful starter. If we have injuries all of a sudden, we're dealing with an injury bug all year, we've seen how that can be crippling for a season. So yeah, to me, I just keep everyone healthy. I think we've got the core unit for sure here.
Luis just said that no NFC team has repeated since the Eagles did in 2004. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a stat that's going to be broken, right? I mean, and if it's going to happen, this is the year, right?
This year.
Yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense. I've thought about this question. Injuries, yeah. I mean, for sure. Excuse me. Although Philly's proven in the past, 2017, that they can overcome them. Obviously, a Jalen one would be pretty wild. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Biggest concern for the Eagles this year. Maybe it's just the lack of growth, right, from some of the younger players. Maybe it's Jordan Davis doesn't look like a first-round draft pick, which would be terrible. Or, Cam Jurgens loses a starting job and doesn't play. And you're like, oh gosh, is he ever going to be good? Or who's another young player? Nakobe Dean. He just isn't good. You just like, wait a second, he's not that good. That would be my concern, is that these young guys who really are going to need to step up. Like Jordan Davis is going to need to be good. He's going to need to be really good this year. He needs to be the next great defensive lineman for Philadelphia. He was taken in the first round. I mean, he's a team pick.
Yeah.
If he stinks this year, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. So that'd be my big concern. If one of these young guys who you are expecting to lean on for the next 6 years is terrible, and you just can't even use them, and it's like, oh my gosh, so that would be rough. That would be really rough.
That would definitely be rough. Yes, I'll give you a better answer. I know kind of the cop out with the whole injuries. Special teams. I gotta be honest. If I'm thinking about where this team is concerned, special teams. I mean, we saw what it cost us in the Super Bowl, and I don't trust it. Right, Michael Clay. I need him to prove it. Like I need that side of the football. It's a complimentary football. If we lose games, if we start getting into a situation where it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Yeah, I feel like it's special teams. Like that is a legit concern, I will say. And then it's not really, players as much. Sure, you could solidify maybe the kicker punt return a little bit better. I feel like there hopefully are other solutions or options, or maybe we just see some improvement. But I think just schematically, like put the guys in the right positions. Do we have the right punter? Is it going to be Siposs? Is it going to be Zentner? Is it going to be someone else, the punt god? Are they going to sign some? Who knows? But yeah, I think thinking about that further, if I'm going to go with some part of the game that we can actually, more so control, I think special teams. That's the part where if anything's going to stop it or hold us back, because I'm not concerned about offense or defense too much.
Yeah, and you don't need the best special team unit in the league. You don't need Devin Hester's Bears.
Right.
You just need to be good, like flip the field every now and then, Catch the ball at the 20 and run to the 40. Just don't be as atrocious as they were, because truly, if the offense hadn't been as good as it was those 2 playoff games, we would really be sitting back here freaking out about special teams, because there were multiple times where it was like that punt did not flip the field in a good way for us, and we're in big trouble. And Brett Kern, whatever, but still, very interesting. Okay, 2 more entries into the ticket giveaway here from Joseph.
Got you down.
We're excited to see Nolan Smith play. We are too. Very excited. I've been on record saying no clue what we're going to get from him this year. I don't think it's 6+ sacks. I think it's 4. I think he struggles to get on the football field because of Reddick, but I hope I'm wrong. I think he's going to be good eventually, but I think there'll be some growing pains for him overall. I mean, the production at Georgia was always a concern. It's why he fell in the draft, but maybe he'll be one of those better pros than he was in college. I don't know, but sure, I'm excited to see what he does. I'm excited to see Jalen Carter, guys. I really am. I expect massive things from Jalen Carter. I really do. Massive things.
I am so excited to see the combination, like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, the combination of those two and the motivations. We haven't really gotten into it a whole lot, but I know the Jordan Davis, the major progress and then the picture, and he's leaner, he's looking more athletic, more explosive. So, what does that all mean? Who knows? We're going to see, hopefully, that there's something extra there, but maybe there's a little extra quick twitch. The excitement of playing next to Jalen Carter. I mean, that's a big deal. I don't think that can be like overplayed in a sense. Now you're still going to say, okay, they're professionals. They're attacking every single day. Sure. But you can't tell me that you've grown up, you've played football, you were on the same team in college, and you're talking to your buddy all the time saying, oh man, it'd be awesome if we played in the same team in the league. And then next thing you know, your guy gets drafted and you played and you guys know each other. I mean, Jordan Davis, what did he say? He said, let's get freaky. Like that's his thing. He'll tell. So it's like, come on, man. Like that gets me hyped for that. And to see them both on the same, just right there in tandem and be able to either rush the passer or Jordan Davis holds it up and all of a sudden Jalen Carter's a game record. Like, yeah, I am super pumped to see that.
He had a really good quote. I was trying to find it here where he talked about how tough OTAs and training camp is for rookies because rookies are in hotels, especially early on, and the toll on the body. I didn't think about that. I can't imagine doing training camp and not going home to your actual bed. I mean, you go to a hotel room. Hotel rooms are rough. I mean, I was in Europe for 10 days. Airbnbs that aren't yours. It's tough. I mean, it's not comfortable. It's like, man, I want to come back to my bed, my room, my kitchen, my food. It's wild. Okay, we'll do a couple more, then wrap things up and get ready for the rest of the weekend here. Tyler Wallace has joined a little late. Tyler, where have you been? You should be on time. Just kidding. Welcome back.
Appreciate you joining.
He asked a question. Which of the Georgia players are going to be home run picks? And he answered the question: Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Where's Keely Ringo's contract, by the way? Why is it taking so long? It's very weird. It's nothing to worry about, but it's just like, what are we doing? It's just. What's the holdup here?
It's not a big deal. It's probably, in my opinion, I feel like first off, it's not a big deal, right? Because like Cam Jurgens didn't get signed till July 3rd or something. It was like right around 4th of July last year. So, and his situation was guaranteed money. Like that's what it came down to. So I feel like it's probably the same deal. They're negotiating. The Eagles are at a certain number guaranteed, and his agent's at a different one. But they're going to get it figured out because, as we know, or I guess if you don't know, just to make sure, like rookie contracts, there's not a ton of negotiation. Like it's dictated by where you're drafted, and it's a very close number where you're going to expect. So it's not like he's holding out saying, "Oh, I need this crazy number." I just think it's the guaranteed numbers they're trying to get a little bit better.
I totally agree. And the problem is he's such a late round draft pick. He's only going to make like $1 million this year after taxes. It's wild how much it's going to be taken from you. Joseph wants 2 more entries. I think Legatron is going to be really good. Open battle. I mean, listen, Siposs and him are going, neck and neck, and they will for the majority of preseason. That'll be a final cut day cut, essentially. But it's going to come down to actual in-game punts, I think, because you can only punt it so well in practice versus actually punting it well in an actual game. So we'll see.
Good thing for Zentner so far because, I mean, I know it's a very small sample size, but from OTAs, apparently Siposs has kind of destroyed him. So he's a much better hang time. I mean, and again, it's OTAs. It's very easy to punt when you don't have guys rushing you, trying to block a punt. You're trying to get a punt off, but I mean, the numbers that you see on the hang time, it's like if we could just get 75% of what the hang time numbers are there, that'd be fantastic. But it seems like all the time we can't. So I don't know, but it will be interesting to see who that is.
I totally agree. All right, a couple more questions here, and then we're going to wrap things up here on this Wednesday. Man, it's only June 7th. It's like, can we get to July already? Problem is you got to get to July, and then you got to get to August because they report on like July 29th or something like that. And then they actually get in there. It's just, takes so long. It takes so long this offseason, even though we're less than 100 days, right? We're less than 100 days from the actual season starting, but it feels like it's just like a million days.
It really does. It's the longest road trip ever. It's like your flight back from Europe. I'm sure that felt like forever.
Long,
so
9 hours.
What was your favorite thing? I mean, I know you went to lots of different countries and went to the French Open and Scotland and all that other stuff. What was your favorite?
flew into London, did 2 days in London, flew into Dublin, did 2 days in Dublin, flew into then Scotland 2 days, and then Paris for 3. And the French Open was really cool because I'm a big tennis fan. Scotland itself, Edinburgh was so cool. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it was awesome. So
I have
cool
not.
looking. The architecture, the food was really, really good. Dublin was great. The Guinness factory was incredible. We went to Anthony Bourdain's favorite pub in Dublin, and it was so good. And they
Really?
yeah, it was awesome. It was like so Dublin pub, but it was kind of like a hole in the wall. So it was all locals, and obviously Bourdain would only pick local spots. They had
Right.
a Guinness chocolate mousse, which was one of the best things I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh
Truly
my
one of the best
gosh.
I've ever had. Great. And then we did this this bus tour to the Scottish Highlands, which was really cool. And we drove past, here's where Hagrid's hut was filmed in Harry Potter. Here's where
Yeah.
James Bond's mansion in Skyfall was filmed. Here's the Harry Potter Black Lake. Here's the Harry Potter train. Like that was really cool as well. So bunch of cool stuff. French Open's great. I'm trying to go to every single tennis major. I've been to US Open, now the French. So I got to get to Australia and Wimbledon. I toured Wimbledon while we were in London. Also very cool. I want to go there for a match, but it was good.
That would be a blast.
Me and my friends have this thing where we get the credit card point deals for flights. So our flights were $400 round trip. So
Heck yeah.
we never go for anything more than 500. So that alone makes it fun to get to hop around and still have some spending change after that. So it's good. It was a solid trip, very fun trip. And then I go to Texas tomorrow, and I think we're hanging out this weekend. So
We are.
we're
Yes.
gonna get to hang out. We've not hung out since the NFC Championship game, so we will be together brainstorming more giveaways and more fun stuff for our 2 channels. How about that? Should we
Yes, we shall. I'm looking forward to it. No, that's a blast. Yeah, I was, kind of I was definitely monitoring your Instagram channel. Let's just say that every time you posted another story, and my wife was doing the same because she was like, "Oh my gosh, she's a huge Harry Potter fan. I am too, but nothing close to what she is." And so it's like as soon as she saw the train and all the other, it's like,
it was cool.
"Oh, we have to go." So that's probably like the top of the list right now. It's like when we get another vacation, that's got to be where we go.
It was very much worth it, and it was a short drive out of Scotland. The lucky part is we had 10 days of sun, and it rains 270 days a year in the UK. So the odds of going when it's not raining are very slim.
Perfect.
It would not be fun when it was raining, but it was perfect weather for us. So look, I got lucky there.
That's awesome.
So, all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Really fun live show. As always, appreciate everyone jumping on here as usual. Obviously, you can watch it over. Watch Josh's show from today. Sub to Josh's channel. He's almost 6,000 subscribers. I mean, the guy's flying up the boards right now. And then get ready for another great week of covering what's going on with the Eagles by both of us. We appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
We'll see you.
See you guys.